Hunter, thank you so much for coming on the AIM podcast.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me.
My man's over there freezing.
Yeah, dude. I bet you inside the house it's like 25 degrees right now. Usually, when I plan, I only got here like less than 24 hours ago. I usually have that fire ripping right there. We've got one in the center of the house. Sometimes we run space heaters, but it'll blow fuses. And right now, the house is all fucked up because there was like some crazy atomic storm that just hit. So we're just in a world of, adventure.
That's so cool. Now, do you keep the house that cold for desire and pleasure, or is this for training?
No,
How it is?
No, dude, it's usually should not be this cold. I think just I'm sure a lot of people have heard that Southern California and the California Generals has had a really crazy winter this year. So it's a little bit past its calendar due date. Like spring should be here already, but I bet you like it's gonna be 70 degrees by the end of the week, which will be nice. I just got to put up with this shit for a couple more days.
I hear you, bro. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. I'm excited to chat with you. Obviously, first and foremost, congrats on all the recent success you've had from an athletic standpoint. You've just broke your world record in Hyrox. I know you've won some other competitions and are doing some cool stuff in the business side of things with your brand. So, really want to dive into some really cool stuff with you today, and honestly, also talk about just a competitive mindset because you are someone who I think is ultra competitive. And with this podcast, we love to talk about mindset and how people can develop and grow. And I think that'll be super valuable for our audience.
Sure, man.
Yeah. Well, first, I think for those listening, man, I would love to kind of share a little bit more of your background and what you've kind of done up to this point, just for setting the stage into context. How did you get into fitness in the first place? Do you come from a sports background, or what kind of got you into competing and all these different things that you do?
We have a competitive family, but not in sports. And my grandfather was a Masters Olympian, very competitive. Everyone in our family is more competitive in business. So I just switched things up. My grandfather always, I'd throw a rock in the water. He'd go, "You're an Olympian. Just keep on throwing." And I'd be like, "All right." Then he got me into javelin, and I got really good at javelin. But when you're younger, you just don't care. Like I didn't have the focus to care. So I was a very like late bloomer when it comes to athletics. I probably was not considered a great athlete until I was like around 21 or 22. Um, my family made me do sports, but I didn't really care. As I said, and I'm not trying to sound like I was just like blah blah, but it's just you're growing up. You don't know if you want to climb trees, skateboard, chase girls, throw rocks at windows, run around a track circle, play soccer, whatever it is. There's just so many opportunities. You're figuring out your life, and it took me until I had got to college and all of a sudden you're kind of out of your bubble and you're having to realign yourself with new people and you're like, who am I really? And you're like, I like beer, I like girls, I like, but like you can't even really drink beer right now, and like you can only talk to so many girls. It's like, who are you as a person? And I was like, I guess if I think back, I really did like competing. I was like, I guess I'm an athlete, so I started to care. And then all of a sudden I recognized, I was like, man, now that I really care, the people I'm surrounding myself with, they don't care like I do. And I was like, I got to get out of this environment. I got out, I dropped out of school, and I decided I was going to start to go out and adventure on my own. I started getting into modeling at the time. I was just like a really lean guy, and I just, took pictures well, I guess. So I started traveling around. I started hanging out with models, and I was like, fuck, these people aren't my people either. So I decided to start going to some road races and show up to like, a CrossFit gym or two. And I was like, fuck, these are my people. And, in the CrossFit world, everybody's very competitive. Like every gym you walk into, there's a workout and there's a score on the board. It's like pretty straightforward. It's like, are you good at this? What can you put up on the whiteboard? So I just immediately became a gym warrior. And then I was like, all right, I'm doing the thing in the gyms. I was like, what else? And this is kind of like the comeuppance of things like CrossFit Games, Spartan Race, Tough Mudder, and I aligned myself more with the Spartan Race and Tough Mudder thing because I was originally a runner, and it was a much easier. Like when I say easier, like at the time there was a Spartan Race every weekend or a
Wow.
Tough Mudder every single weekend. In CrossFit at the time, it was like you can do the open and go to the games. So I was like, I'm gonna go for this. And I just started, man. Like I was basically traveling around the world. By 22, I had a contract with Spartan Race. and Spartan Race and Reebok by 23, and I was like being flown around the world to go to races and stuff. It just blew up. It literally fell into my lap, but then the opportunity fell in my lap, and then once you have that opportunity, it's like how tough are you? Are you going to hold on to this? So
Yep.
I've literally been top 3 in the world at every sport that I've ever been involved in since I've been 22. And just because I was like, I'm here, like I'm not giving this up. And I just fought like a dog ever since.
That's amazing, man. That's such a cool story. What was it specifically about obstacle course racing and Hyrox, those kind of things that you do? Because it's always, they're relatively similar, that really drew you into those specific things. Like, was it about the way you felt physically? Was it the way it challenged you mentally? Like, what were the actual tangible things that made you, draw into those?
I mean, this is probably gonna piss some people off, but I don't give a damn. Like I've always liked being the big guy in the room. Like I'm a larger person. I'm never the biggest person, but I'm a large dude. And I just recognized I was like, all these dudes that are bigger than me in the gym can't do shit. I was like, they're not athletes. They're fucking, they can move their arms from here to here or their butt from here to here more than I can. But I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Nothing. I was like, okay, let's see what you can do with a basketball. Okay, let's see how quick you can run up to the top of this mountain. Okay, let's see if you can pick up this rock. Like just things that are like real world strength and real world application. Those people in the gym that spent so much time honing their craft doing tricep presses can't do shit. So when I went to a Spartan race, I was like, this makes sense. Like it makes sense that if I'm in the real world and we're playing paintball or something, I'm going to run faster than all you guys and I'm going to jump right over this wall and I'm going to shoot you square in the face when I get there. And like, like I thought about the real world application and how much fun it was. Like it meant a lot more to me to our world championships were held in Killington, Vermont on this ski mountain that's like just as savage as possible. And that spoke more to me than being in a gym and throwing wall balls and doing ring muscle ups and stuff. I was like, what the hell does that mean? So it just was raw. It was badass. Like I just felt like a macho man doing it. And my motto has always been biceps win races. I didn't align with so much the meatheads. I didn't align with the runners. I was this guy in the middle that could go into either room and throw to the fuck down. So that's kind of where my ethos was behind the whole thing. And I just it spoke true to me ever since. There's a reason why I don't have an apartment on top of a penthouse apartment in downtown LA or New York City. Like I have cabins in the woods and ranches on top of mountains in Malibu. I'm just more of an outdoorsy guy.
So cool, man. You touched on biceps win races. I want to hear the story of where you came up with that, and tell people listening what that means, because it's something that you've kind of coined and people associate with you. It's kind of funny.
I've always, as I said, been a bigger guy, and it's obviously not an advantage to be a bigger guy in endurance sports, but I was like, fuck that. It's gonna pay off one of these days. So I was racing against Hobie Call, who is undisputed the best guy in the world, and I was always number 2 to him every single time we raced. And I just was sick of it. But we were racing in Malibu in my backyard at this very big, it was like one of the biggest events that they had in the United States, if not around the world, because it's right next to LA. And I'm racing this guy, and we're shoulder to shoulder, and he's always a foot or two ahead of me. And I'm like, I gotta get him. I gotta get him. And we get into this gauntlet where it was like a rope climb, a Hercules hoist, and like you had to pick something up heavy and then climb up a rope and then hoist something up that was really heavy. And it was super muddy outside. So like the hoist got soaked and saturated. The rope was really hard to grip. And the thing you had to pick up was just like soaking wet. So it just took so much arms. And we did the lift and he was with me. We did the climb. We were together. Then it came to the hoist and he just started pulling and it was just like dead. And I was just like, rip, rip. And it was my biceps that won the whole race. And I just crossed the finish line right in front of him. And I flexed at the finish line. It was the first time I've ever beat him. And I was like, biceps and races, baby. And that's kind of been my thing ever since. They've definitely done me some favors since then, but sometimes,
That's so cool, man.
fought against me.
It's a cool story. No, I think it's super cool just to see what you've done. Like I said, just in the sport of, Spartan and obstacle racing, and now in Hyrox. Hyrox, I think, is such an interesting one. I'd love to unpack a little bit more, because I think right now, while those other things are great and they've been around for a while, Hyrox, it seems it appears to just have a ton of momentum and a ton of growth and honestly upside to the sport and how it's continuing to evolve and how many more people are getting into it. You are the face of Hyrox. I think it's safe to say that. And you just broke your world record that you previously had. How did you kind of get into Hyrox specifically? And I'd love to hear more of your perspective of how the sport has grown over the years since when you started to where it is now.
I was just invited. It's once you're in this network, you're getting connected with people. I'm sure you know this. At any given time, you're only like one phone call away from your next best opportunity. And my friend Paul Bogus, who I competed against with and traveled with a ton in my years of Spartan race, was like, dude, this is your new thing. And I was like, all right, whatever, man, I'll take the meeting. So he introduced me to the founder, Christian. And this guy, Christian's this crazy German guy. And I was just like, you make me laugh, man, but I don't know. I don't have time for this right now. And I kind of put it off for a year and I went and focused on CrossFit. And I came back and I was like, I want to get back into running. I might as well take that opportunity up. And it was the first one that they had in the United States in 2019 at the end of the year. And I showed up and I definitely I knew that I was going to be good at it just because of the amount of stuff that I'd done before. And I came in and I won the thing and I had beaten the previous world champion. And I was like, that was a lot of fun. Like this actually might be worth the time invested into this thing. Cause there's only so much you can do in a season. Like you can't
Sure.
train for an Ironman, train for the CrossFit Games, train for Hyrox, and be the best. I truly, nothing turns me on more than the actual achievement of winning, but also winning something that is incredibly challenging and takes every fiber in your being to actually accomplish the task at that level. And I started coming in and I was undefeated for the first 3 years, and I just was like, I kind of lost a little bit of focus with it, and COVID was hitting and everything. And I think Hyrox probably would be much bigger than it is already now. Like I would say probably 100% bigger than it already is if COVID hadn't hit.
Wow.
And my interest was kind of wavering as everything else was wavering. Spartan race was falling apart, Tough Mudder was falling apart, CrossFit was falling apart. Everybody was, because COVID was kind of suppressing everything. So around 2021, I kind of was like, I'm letting go of the thing. And I lost. I came in and I never lost up until this point. And I lost at World Championships, and then I lost the national championships shortly thereafterwards. And that completely changed my investment in it. And I was like, I fucking hate losing.
Wow.
I will go back in with fire underneath me and I will cook these people alive. And I did. And that's I think that was my path through the thing. I think globally the path has been, there's so many runners around the world. And I think there's so many functional fitness people or just fitness people around the world. And there's the people in between that really love to do both. And it's a massive population. And this really just aligns itself right in the middle of those two things, so much so that if you're the kind of person that likes to be in the gym 4 days a week and then the other days of the week you like to go running, you found your new sport. It's perfect. It's a lot of fun. It's long enough that it's interesting, and it's hard enough that it's interesting, and it's not so long and unattainable like an Ironman that you'd have to throw half your life away to get it done. So it's perfect.
I like the way you sum that up. I think that's a good way to describe it. And it's cool because, like you said, it really does require a blend of all these different, modalities and sides of the spectrum. If you're just a fast runner, the sled's going to rock you. And if you're super strong and you can move the sled, but you have no, endurance or speed, you're going to get crushed on the run. And so I think it really does define and kind of bring out the best athlete of just someone who's very well rounded as a human.
Yeah. It's hard to really say who's the fittest person on earth, but this is a pretty good definer of somebody who's in stellar shape. So I think that you could really look at a good Hyrox athlete and say, you could put this person on a rugby team and they'd kick ass. You could put this person to a half marathon Ironman, they'd kick ass. You could put them into a lot of places and they fit in quite nicely. So I personally love the level of fitness, because I could check out right now and I could go do half a dozen other sports at a very high level.
100%. Now you are currently training for and preparing for the World Championships, correct?
Yeah.
What What goes into that style of training? I know you talked about you're all in, you're focused, you're determined to win. Like, what does a week of training look like for you right now for the World Championships for Hyrox?
Mm, depends on the week, but it's like 15 to 25 hours a week of training a week. Um, Lots of it's endurance. So much of it is endurance. 3 to 4 hour bike rides a day, 90-minute runs, 90-minute gym sessions. I'm either a believer in like you train opposite sides of the spectrum, like you're big focus in the periodization mode of training endurance, or you're big in the focus mode of um, training your intensity. And I use both of those styles of training to like really polish and be intensely good at both of those things. But then when they come together, I have the capacity for both. Like you have to train the endurance, otherwise you won't be able to push that whole hour without your lungs popping. You have to be able to train the intensity, otherwise you'll be flat. Like you're not going to be a record breaker. Sure, you'll be fit, but you're not going to be a record breaker. And for me, like I hold the world record and I've held the world record on and off for basically the last 4 years. If you look at it, I don't just do it because I'm a good runner or I'm good at the stations. I basically hold the fastest run of all time and I hold the fastest of almost every single station. And
Mhm.
it takes that level of knowing when to train and develop each aspect independently and then how to bring them together cohesively so that you can have like these really stellar performances. And unlike, I think people are starting to wise up a little bit, but I think you should really spend so much of the year looking at your weaknesses and like train them. Like I knew last year I had built my strength up way too heavy 2 years ago. I was way too strong. And I was like, I neglected my endurance. So I spent the last 18 months just like doing crazy things like Ironmans and 4 hour bike rides and lots of running volume. And now my engine's so good that I can start to pay attention to the strengths a little bit again. Or you might be the total opposite. You might be such a fit person that you need to really, really look yourself in the mirror and get strong again. So it's a fun sport in that way because it's consistent, unlike CrossFit, where their level of measurement is how tough are you in its inconsistency. So I think it's a very easy and fun sport to train for, and like it's approachable, which I like as well.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think everyone obviously is in a different position physically, where their strengths and weaknesses are. Now, I've consumed a lot of your training content, and something you also talk about is for certain stations, you'll actually train, different variations or different move or different, I guess, exercises to prepare for them, such as you said you don't do a ton of sled pulls. Instead, you deadlift a lot. Like, are those things that you've kind of learned throughout your time and experience in the sport, and how has that kind of impacted your training?
But yeah, I mean, the sled pull is just like a deadlift with a reverse march. So you have to deadlift to get it started, and then you have to reverse march. So what do? I just do really heavy sets of deadlifts, which is the initial pull, and then I'll wrap a sled around my waist, and I'll practice the different versions of like where my feet are placed when I'm doing the march back, and which one will give me the most torque, and which one will exhaust my legs the least. And then I just watch people just pull sleds all the time, and I was like, well, if you look at football players are in the gym squatting all the time. They're not taking heavy sleds and pushing them all the time. The the best way to get strong is with a barbell. There's no other way around it. Like world's strongest man guys, they train a barbell probably 70% of the year and then they polish their stations. That's just it. That's what you do. So apply yourself to steel and then apply yourself to practical application. Same thing, like, when I decided I wanted to get better at sleds and than everybody else, I did a 20 rep back squat routine because I was like, this is the number one thing that's going to be able to let my legs experience time under tension and be able to apply more force. So I did that. And then this time of year, like I do spend a lot of time doing sleds and just because it's time to start working on it again. And as far as like other things, I study my muscle groups like all throughout the year and I look at all my times and I say, hey, like, my biceps actually were the thing that were tired during last championships. So I'm going to train my biceps for like 6 months straight so that doesn't become a limiting factor and so on and so forth. So it's just a game.
Yeah, no, I love it. That makes a lot of sense, and it kind of segues into, you are you've done a lot of really awesome things in the fitness space and you're very successful as an athlete, but you're also an entrepreneur. You've got multiple businesses. You train a lot of people and help people in that regard. Also, you have a supplement company. Where did that kind of come into you as you started to build your brand and decide where you want to build in life? Like when did you become a business person and kind of step into those roles in addition to your training?
You know, I've always been like hustling and making little businesses ever since I was a young guy. Like I wanted to I was really into pets. I still am into pets, but I don't own any anymore. But I used to go to the pet store and I wanted to buy more pets, and my parents were like, "We're tired of giving you money for pets." So I used to go and capture animals in the woods, and I would sell them to the pet store so that I could get the ones that I wanted. Because, like, I'd catch a snake or a spider or a bass or a salamander or whatever it was, and I'd be like, $5. And I was like, I'll give you five of these for that chameleon because I
Wow.
want that. So I was always like a hustler. And I always had ideas investing in gyms and other projects once I started to make some money in this thing. And then what happened is during COVID, I got kicked off of all the teams. And I get it. Like all my sponsors let go of me during COVID because they were like, hey, man, we got to cut all budgets until we figure this thing out. So I went from like being a pretty star-studded salary dude down to like nothing. I was making $3,000 a month, and I was just like,
Wow.
whoa. And I had way over $3,000 a month in expenses. So, I was smart. I saved up money. I wasn't in like a tragic spot, but I just said to myself, I was like, I'm powerless right now. Like I literally have no opportunity to make money. And I feel that I've kind of walked myself into a dead end with no exit strategy. Like the road behind me is closed off and I'm kind of stuck here until I figure something else out. I got to dig myself out of this situation. So I sat down with a whiteboard and I wrote down three goals. And, one of them was to set the Murph World Record. And then the other one was another personal project. And the last one was like, I want to start some businesses and I would like to sell one product a day. Like if I sold one product a day, that would be a business. Now we're selling 30 products a day. Like it's off the charts how quickly things are moving. So it was just this level of like, oh fuck meets inspiration. And I think you need to have those like moments in life where like if it comes crashing down, you rebound out of the hole. If you
Yeah.
like come slowly down and things like that, you have less urgency about it. So I'm definitely the kind of person who uses urgency at the highest level. And like, me losing makes me want to go back and set a world record rather than be like, oh, I don't know. So I took all these ideas that I had been working on for years and I just started taking money out of my bank account and I was like, I'll put 10,000 here. I'll put 10,000 there. I'll put 10,000 there. It was like almost like investing in the stock market. And I was like, what do I get return on? And I've always loved supplements. I actually would create all my own formulas. Like if you come around my house, I always have just like pill containers and powders everywhere. And I would create formulas that I believed in that would help me accelerate my performance or sustain it or whatever it was. I just needed to learn how to get the most out of it. And I was like, like most of us are taking bodybuilding products. Like we're taking products that were designed for a different application. Like these people aren't hybrid athletes, they're not endurance athletes. They want different things and they also have different dosing processes and different everything. I was like, I need to build a brand that's specifically for athletes. So I built my product, Building Better Athletes, Builder. So like we talk about everything is like performance enhancing products. So our hydration product is not just carbohydrates or just electrolytes. Like there's three ingredients in there that are meant to enhance your performance as it hydrates you towards better performances. So we do BCAAs, we do another amino acid, which is taurine at a very high level, and we do a high level of electrolytes. These things are not going to help you pick up a car or run a 3-minute mile, but it's going to give you those extra percentages of not only performance, but then the opportunity to get back to training sooner. And it's not necessarily about a couple great workouts. It's hundreds and hundreds of good workouts that make a great person. And that's where I think the industry gets confused. They want this light switch or this red pill that's going to transform them into Neo for the Matrix. It doesn't happen. But the longer you can stay healthy and the longer you can stay consistent, the better you will become and the closer you will get to your goals. So that was that product. And then I made Strength X2, which was a product that I designed during setting the Murph World Record. Was I just like, I need to have strength because I understand that I'm moving, tons of thousands and thousands of pounds throughout this workout. And I'm putting it in a tighter and tighter window than anyone's ever done before. So it's basically just strength. And then I also have to have crazy blood flow. I was just recognizing, I was like, my fucking my biceps would be locked out like this after some of my workouts and stuff. I needed to keep blood flowing throughout my body, so I combined citrulline and creatine. And I was like, these are the products that hybrid athletes need so that they can break through that barrier in their training and break through it in competition. So that's where that company came from. And we have a couple other ones that do well as well. But the one that like I really am most excited about is Builder, because it's a freaking multinational brand that literally was started on a beanbag chair in a room during COVID, which is such a inspiring thing to me.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Congrats on all you guys are doing. With that being said, you're building these companies, you're building these things. You're also training your professional athlete. You're training very seriously. How do you find balance in both? And what are some tips you have for people that are wanting to pursue, hardcore athletics, but also build their company and their brand?
There's no such thing as balance. Balance is for pussies.
There.
I just think that I don't know, man. The best people in the entire world. Like, I don't read books about the person that was like a balanced person who lived in a cul-de-sac with a safe car and a safe mortgage and a 9 to 5 with a 401k. That is a fucking 4-page book that I will not even get the first page done. Like, it's just boring. And, it's better to be on the edge of failure and greatness than just live in this puddle of safety.
Mm.
Um, I'm not a balanced person at all. I wake up in the morning and I work my ass off all day long, but I believe in extremes. Like, I will be I will build something. I will set records and set lines and accomplish things that nobody else in the world will do because they didn't take the time to do it or didn't have the care to do it. And that's not offense to you. It's what I decided to do. And don't be upset because I'm the one doing it and you're the one watching it. And the same exact thing when it comes to business. Like, yeah, man, you could start your own supplement company, but if you're sitting here and you're saying, "Oh, that guy's crazy," and you're sipping on my drink, fine by me. And I think the biggest thing you can do as far as balance goes is like it's maintained insanity and surrounding yourself with people that are going to help you continue to move that thing on properly so that when you do want to have your moments of like, I need a break, which I don't do often, the ship will keep on moving without me. I've
Yeah.
got my business partner, Tom, over in Europe for Builder. I've got people like my mindset coach, Devo. I've got people like my operations guy, Ryan. I've got my media team, Alex. I've got, my training partners to help me push me in training. And they all know I'm crazy people. I'm a crazy person and that I don't believe in balance and any of that kind of stuff. But they're kind of just bumpers, and I don't run into them often, but they're there if they need to catch me. And you know, this lifestyle is not aligned for most people. There's a reason why most people work at an office that somebody else owns. I'm just the person that wanted to own the office, and that may end up getting me in trouble at some point, but it hasn't hit yet.
Yeah, fair. I mean, listen, if it's working for you now, obviously you're having tremendous success, man. That's cool. I enjoy that because we've had a lot of different cool founders on the show from large CPG products to experiences. Joe DeCenter from Spartan, different people, and everyone comes and answers that question differently. So it's cool to hear different people's perspectives on that. And so I really enjoyed what you had to say. And yeah, man, I would love to also touch on mindset because again, like with this podcast, we talk a lot about different ways to strengthen your mind, different ways to grow mentally, because a lot of what you do starts there. And, you're a very, very competitive person. Obviously, you have a high degree of confidence in, the way you carry yourself and what you've accomplished. What do you think goes into a strong mind in the context of being competitive?
Well, if you could explain to me first what's the point of being weak and what's the point of being humble and what's the point of being afraid, then I will sit and listen. And if you can give me a good point, then I won't have to tell you why it's so important to be confident and to be not humble and to be more just intense and get after it kind of attitude. I haven't found anybody to fully explain to me the value and the opposite of all these things. And that's it. I usually only reach opposition when it comes to somebody who doesn't like or is intimidated by my actions and they're saying you should be more humble, and I say, why? Because it's the right thing to do. And I say, why? And nobody can give me a good answer. Like, I don't walk into the room and like kick somebody's legs out from underneath them and be like, I'm better than you. That's not how I act. But if we show up to a race and people are like, Hunter, how do you plan on doing it? I plan on whooping your ass and everybody else's. And they say, what the fuck? That dude's such a dick. He's so arrogant. I was like, what do you mean? We're racing. The sports are about who are the best in the room. There's a scoreboard for a reason because people are interested in finding that out. And there's a reason why that's the same thing in business. And I think this intense attitude, as I said, like, there's a reason why there's sharks in the water and things like that. There's predators out there in the world, and there's a pecking order in everything that you're ever going to face in life. And I just think it's better to be at the top of the food chain.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, do you think confidence is a choice, or do you think that's something that you have to earn?
It is a choice, dude. I mean, there's people that I know that have absolutely nothing in their pocket and they've got nothing going on in their life, but they just got confidence and swag. And for some reason, they take ownership of the room because of that. It's free. It's free. I mean, here's the reality. Eventually, you're going to be in a situation where you have to be able to back it up. So don't be, empty in that regard. But confidence is a choice. It's all a game. It is really all a game. The older I've got, the more I've recognized is that we're just playing a game and everything has a reset button. Like right now, dude, you could have a heart attack and you'd be flatlined and your heart rate goes beep. They can resuscitate you and put a new heart in there and you can be back alive again. You can go bankrupt like a dozen times and you can press the reset button. Everything can be reset. And I just recognize once you get into that mindset that it's a game. So why not try to play it fast and wild and at the top, trying to chase first in every category that you're in?
No, that makes a lot
Um,
of sense.
yeah. So I think it especially gets very intense for me this time of year because I have to really, really keep this mindset. And then probably other times a year, if you talk to me, I'd be a little bit more docile about things. But especially this time of year, getting into championships, you're probably catching me in more of a revved up state of mind than I am in normally. Like I was just doing hard intervals like an hour before I talked to you, so I'm jacked up.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you're giving me Kobe vibes right now, which is good. Dude, this has been great. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's cool just to hear your perspective. And honestly, it's been one of the coolest things about this podcast is having on so many high performing people and just hearing their stories and hearing the way they approach life. And I really appreciate you coming on, Hunter. This has been a really fun episode.
Appreciate you having me, man. Are you racing? You'll be at Manchester?
Yeah, that's the plan. So I'm doing Manchester in the doubles division with my business partner Lucas. So we qualified in LA, and yeah, we're getting geared up. We did a 50 miler a few weeks ago, a trail race in San Fran, and we're finished up our last little bits of recovery from that. We each had a couple little dings from different spots, but I think we'll start to ramp up training and really go.
Good for you, dude. Stay on the bike. It's healthy.
Yeah, that's what you found to be like a really good way to kind of offload some of that running volume or
I
bang
spend
up from
I
that.
spend 50 to 70% of my week on a bike.
That's good to know.
Unless you crash the bike, it's injury free, and all you do is just build up the lungs, and then take a couple days a week where you're just spending time honing your craft at a high level of intensity, and then the rest of the week just build up your conditioning on a bike. And especially you're a bigger guy and you're already pretty run down from that thing, you can
Oh,
build your lungs up on the bike. So if you can do that, man, you'll be in shape and you'll kick some butt.
let's go. Well, we'll definitely have to link up in Manchester, man. I'd love to see you when we get out there. And yeah, I'm excited to watch your journey and your progress. And hopefully you get another world championship under your belt.
Hell yeah, man, dude. Thank you so much for your time. It was great connecting.
Let's go, man. Thanks.